The better the care, the more your animal is going to reward you with their fascinating natural behaviors. Now, that's a philosophy that has always guided the way I care for my animals. I've always believed that as a caregiver, you should be offering elements of the natural world to your animal, whether that be through maybe a varied diet or a variation in the climate control, something that more accurately represents where they're from, or having items in the enclosure that offer environmental enrichment. So I mean, there's many different ways to do this. I really do think this is especially true for reptiles, because these are non-domesticated animals, and I do really think it is important, and it's a responsibility of the caregiver to add elements of the natural world into their habitats so they can at least experience some of that, sort of what they would have if they were not kept in the wild. Now, I'm not saying that everybody needs to have a bioactive enclosure. I have bioactive enclosures for my geckos, but I don't have bioactive enclosures for my snakes. I personally don't think right now I could manage bioactive enclosures for my snakes. That's a little bit of a bigger task. And obviously, if you can't manage a bioactive enclosure, you shouldn't have one, because lots of things can go wrong. If you're not monitoring it close enough, it would be a breeding ground for bacteria, etc., etc. But what I am suggesting is that I think everybody should be pushing the limits of their care, adding elements of nature as you get comfortable, because I think it's really important to the animal. So if you have a snake inside a tub with newspaper, substrate, and a bowl of water, and that's all you've done, I personally think you should really consider trying to add some kind of natural piece to that environment to offer a little bit more to the animal. This is just my opinion. But this is my issue. Whenever I start thinking about wanting to add more and more nature into, and more natural elements into the enclosures of the animals I keep, and I do that because I love the animals, I start to think, well, why do I keep these animals in the first place? Wouldn't it be ultimately better for these animals if they weren't in captivity, if they were just able to live that normal life and be part of the natural world like their ancestors are? I mean, you don't have to go very many generations back to get to the wild for some of these animals, or most of them, most likely. Now, I am very interested in these animals, and I really do enjoy caring for them. But the truth is, for me anyways, I don't think that's enough to just be interested in the animals to justify keeping them. Even if I give my animals great care and they live long, I guess, in quote, happy lives, does that actually support keeping them in captivity? I don't think it does. Because sure, my individual animals they're going to have a good life. Most likely they're going to live way longer and way healthier than they would have if they had to live in the wild, because that's typically the case as long as you take good care of your animals. But is that actually going to benefit the population of these animals in general on the planet? The only thing that seems to be happening here is I'm fulfilling my desires to keep an animal, and like I said, these individual animals are in good care, but overall, am I just satisfying my own desires to want to keep an animal in the first place? I think partly that is truth. That is kind of what we do as animal keepers. I'm not saying we don't love to keep the animals, and we're not unbelievably fascinated by them and think they're amazing and appreciate them and take good care of them. What I am saying is, if we love the animal that much, are we doing them a favor by keeping them? So in other words, is there any justification to be keeping these animals in captivity? I think there is. At least I think I've personally found one. This is something that I've had to think about for a while. Every time I go down this road, I want to offer the most natural experience to my animals possible, and I think, well, the ultimate natural piece would have been for them to live in the wild and live a normal life. But I do think I have found one justification that can sort of answer the question of, is it actually ethical to be keeping these animals? So this is how I've determined how keeping animals at home can actually benefit the population or the wild population of animals on the planet. Now, I think that for me, that's a really important bridge to create, and maybe not everybody thinks that way, but it's the way that I think. So this is kind of how I've thought about it. Now, the pet trade is always going to exist, at least as far as I can tell. I think the pet trade is not going anywhere anytime soon, and thankfully the lion's share of the pet trade in Europe and North America is supported through captive bred and captive raised animals. Now, there obviously still are lots of wild caught things happening. There maybe is some argument to say some of that is good if you're doing some scientific research or whatever it is. But as an individual hobbyist, by captive bred and captive raised animals. I don't know what the number is, but probably something like 90% of the animals that you might want to keep are going to be available captive bred. Yes, they're going to be more expensive. Yes, they're going to be harder to find. Be patient, save up the money, and buy captive bred. It is super important that that us as animal owners are not supporting a trade that goes into the rainforest and poaches animals out of their wild habitats just so we can keep them, because that's exactly opposite of what I think a lot of us are for. Of course, I do have to acknowledge the fact that the animals in my room that I'm sitting in right now are all descendants of animals that were at one point poached from the wild. There's no way around that, and I can't actually come up with a fairly good argument to support that. I don't think I can support the initial wild-caught poaching that happened for the pet trade. But it has already happened, and I think now that it has happened and there is a captive bred industry that is taking place, I think I can find some benefits that we can get from that. You know, part of the reason why I started my blog was I really wanted to promote more natural care for the animals that we keep. I'm not at all saying that I have the gold standard of care, not even one bit. But what I do like to promote is trying to push the limits of the care, like I said at the beginning. You know, I think the reptile industry does have kind of a bad streak running through it of really poor care taking place. And I'm not necessarily talking about the industrialized side, like the bins or like the racking systems with paper and the water dish. Like, I'm not a huge fan of that style of keeping as well, but there's even an uglier side to the pet trade, and all you have to do is go look on your local classifieds, and you're going to see hundreds of animals on there of people that had an animal for 6 months and they're not interested in keeping it anymore because they just wanted a pet to play with and they weren't interested in actually advancing their care to the point that I think is necessary when you're keeping reptiles. So I really wanted to promote more natural care, maybe even deter some people from buying a reptile, showing like, hey, this is the amount of work that goes into keeping these animals, in my opinion. If this is not something that you want to commit to, then you shouldn't. Then you should go to the zoo or go visit your friends that have the animals, but don't go buy an animal and then get tired of it in a month. Because these like I've had this crested gecko he's 13 years old, so he's probably older than some of you guys watching this video. But I still keep him. I've never been tired of him. I feed him, I give him water, I give him everything he needs. So that's the sort of the commitment that goes on with reptiles. I wanted to promote the natural care, and that quote that I said at the beginning is a quote that I picked up somewhere years ago. I have no idea where it came from, and I think I've paraphrased it in some way. And just sort of to repeat the quote, the better the care, the more your animal will reward you with their natural behaviors. Now, it's true. It's technically true, and I'm sure some of you guys have noticed this before. When you add different elements of nature into your animal's enclosure, all of a sudden they instinctively know what to do with it, right? Like they're going to use the climbing branches, or they're going to burrow, or they're going to whatever it is. When you add something to the enclosure that the animal can interact with, if they have a wild instinct, they'll just go into it and they know what to do. So they know how to. So maybe you have a tiny little water dish, and then one day you offer a big water dish, and all of a sudden you have the animal swimming. So things like that. The more you offer, the more your animal is going to display, and it's really important to know that. If you have the newspaper and the water dish, and that's everything you have in your animal's enclosure, I understand that that's giving them everything they need to live, but you're probably missing out on some really cool behaviors that the animal would actually be showing you if they had the opportunity. Like the switches for the animal are not going to come on until the items are in their enclosure, and I do really want to make that point, and I think that some of you probably have that experience, right? You start seeing new things when you add more climbing features, or add maybe a humid area for the animal that you didn't have before. Now the animal's inside there burrowing themselves in there, shedding on it. The animals will know what to do instinctively with the items, but you have to offer them. So how can we take this one step further? How can I take the promotion of keeping these animals in a natural way to actually benefiting the population of these exotic animals on the planet? Is that possible? I do think it is, and this is how. So this is what I've done. The first thing I started doing is I started looking at charities, especially charities that focus on conserving the land that these animals are from. So specifically, I was looking at my South American animals. So I have the two boa constrictors, and then I have a Brazilian rainbow boa. So the Amazon rainforest, I'm sure you know, is always being decimated by illegal mining and forestry and poaching and things like that. So I started looking into different charities, and I ended up finding a charity that is from my own country, from Canada, that is called the Amazon Rainforest Conservancy. So I reached out to them, and I learned a lot about kind of how they operate, and basically what they do is they accept donations, and they use those donations to go buy large spaces of land in the Peruvian Amazon rainforest. So they take land, they buy it as their own, and they just protect it, and that's what their role is. And I thought, hey, that is really, really neat. It's a very, very cool idea, especially because I have animals that are from there. So with this charity in mind, I thought, okay, there's some interesting things we could do here. One, I could take the enthusiasm that you and I have about keeping reptiles and actually can convert some of that into donations to help these wildlife foundations protect the land of the ancestors to the animals that we have in our rooms. And the second thing that interacting with this charity allows me to do is actually promote the keeping of these animals, especially like the captive bred and raised animals. Keeping them, there's an ethical reason to keep them, and this is what it is. I would have had no interest in donating to an Amazon rainforest charity without these animals in my room. And I'm not saying I'm an evil person, I'll never donate to charities. It's not that. It's just, I don't think it would have crossed my mind. But I've held boa constrictors. I take care of them every single day. I have seen how unbelievably beautiful a Brazilian rainbow boa looks under a light or under the sun. And all of a sudden it clicks to me. It's like, wow, there's ancestors of these guys that are in South America that are being threatened by illegal activities, and I can actually help protect them in some way. So I can promote keeping and caring for these animals because all it does is it shows how amazing these animals are, and it sparks interest in them. And if it sparks enough interest, you might have some people that are interested in it, at least helping these charities a little bit protect the wildlife so we don't lose these animals on the planet, which I think we all desperately don't want. We don't want to lose these animals. We want to protect them. That's why we keep them. That's why we love to have them and look at them and research them and all that. So in other words, the keeping of these exotic animals is actually putting something tangible in my mind that the charity is protecting, which I think is very, very important. So the original idea for my blog, like I said, was just to promote high-level care, and especially just pushing your individual limits of your care. And with the blog, there's a few things that happen. So one, with the YouTube and my blog, I have ads, which means I have some cash flow coming in from those ads. Now it's very small right now, but I do have some. And then the second area I have cash flow is from being an Amazon affiliate. So what that means is if you click on a link of mine, that's an Amazon link, and you buy something, I get a small commission from Amazon at no extra cost to you. The item is not more expensive. It just, Amazon gives me a couple percent of that item, like usually about 5%, to just sort of say, hey, thanks for sending an individual to the Amazon website. So those are the two ways I actually have cash flow coming from the blog. Now, like I said, it's a very small amount, but it does kind of help out a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a percentage of that, and I'm just going to donate it to the ARC, which is the Amazon Rainforest Conservancy. That's the charity that I reached out to, who I like. They're from my country, and I love what they're doing. So just by you watching these videos or being on my website, you're going to be kind of helping donating to that. We can kind of use Google's and use Amazon's money and donate it to the wildlife areas of the animals that we love. Now, of course, there's a chance that you don't know who I am, or you don't like me and you don't want to support me at all. That's totally fine. I have a link to the ARC in the information box below. I really highly recommend go and make a small donation, or go donate to that charity, and you don't have to support me at all. I'm just making this video to sort of say my thoughts. Or go find another charity. Do research on the area where your animal is native to. It doesn't have to be the ARC. I really do think that if we kind of start this culture of helping out these charities in the hobby, we can do a lot of damage in a good way. If you donate to another charity, or you have another charity that you really want to support, please put it in the comments below. I would love the comments below to turn into sort of like a repository of of different charities that people can go click on, and maybe once a month you donate $2 somewhere. These charities never ask for much. It's just a small amount, and I can promise you that I'm going to take a small percentage of my revenue that I get through the YouTube, the Amazon Associates, and my blog, and I'm going to be sort of funneling it to the charity. So for example, if you need substrate for your animal and you want to buy it off Amazon and you go through my link, just by the fact of you taking care of your animal, you know that a little small piece is going to be going to a charity, and every little bit adds up and it counts. I know it's going to be small, but it adds up. My other idea for helping the ARC out was I created these shirts. So I'm not sure if we can see these shirts. It's just got a boa constrictor on it. It says Serpentis at the top. Serpentis is the sub order of basically the umbrella suborder of all the snakes on the planet. So I thought that was kind of neat. It's just the Latin word for that. So I got these shirts made. It comes in a t-shirt like this, a men's and women's, and it also comes in a sort of a tank. If you go buy a shirt off my website, $5 will automatically get donated to the charity. That way, it just, we're helping out that way. So if you like the shirt, go buy it. Piece of the profit is going to go to the ARC. And if you do end up buying a shirt, please take a picture of yourself, maybe holding your favorite animal in front of your favorite animal's enclosure, and email it to me. My email is in the description below. It's just hello@animalsathome.ca. And I'll post it on my Facebook page, and you can like my Facebook page as well. The information is below. And we'll just kind of have a little collection of those running. Again, if you want to support me, please like this video and subscribe. That really helps. And if you don't like me or you think I'm weird or something, go find a charity. Go make a small donation so we can start helping these animals in a way that's bigger than just helping the individual animals that we own. We love these animals, so we should feel some responsibility and some obligation to help the wild counterparts to the animals that you have in your room and I have in my room. Like I said, it's just going to be small bits of donations at a time, and we'll be able to make a difference. So hopefully this video wasn't too controversial in any way. I would love to know what you guys think in the comments. Please let me know kind of if you think this is an interesting idea. If you make donations already, please let me know the charities below. I would love to kind of see a collection of different charities, and let's try to make a difference for some of these reptiles. I think we can do it.